Roy Sy, I'm chairman of the Wooddale Community Development Commission. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mrs. Schroeder,
Here.
Dr. Madonna,
Here.
Mr. Milano is not here. Mr. Peterson,
Here.
Mr. Petrella,
Here.
Mr. Woods is not here. Chairman Sy.
Here. I declare a quorum present. We have one public hearing scheduled for tonight. All testimony will be given under oath. At the hearing, there will be an opportunity for the public to offer testimony and to comment. Following the public hearing, in these cases, our deliberations will be open to the public. In a sense, they all are invited to listen, to watch. The public, however, may not speak during our deliberations. The Unified Development Ordinance requires a prevailing vote by the majority of the members of the Community Development Commission for those matters that will be referred to the City Council for approval, and for those matters on which the Community Development Commission will make the final decision. We ask the applicants here tonight to provide general description of their proposals and give specific evidence to demonstrate the applicant's proposal meets the standards of Unified Development Ordinance for the relief requested. The burden is on the applicant to prove the case. With respect to others who wish to speak, you may give an opinion or present specific evidence as why you believe the applicant meets or fails to meet the standards for the relief requested. Finally, we will strictly adhere to the schedule prepared for tonight's meeting. In the case of an applicant or an event you or your attorney have filed an appearance of an objector, you will be afforded sufficient time within which to present your evidence. Whether you're a member of the public wishing to make a statement for the record or a witness testifying on behalf of the applicant or an objector, you will be placed under oath and begin by stating your name and address. If you are not presenting evidence on behalf of the applicant or an objector, your remarks will be taken after the applicant and all those who have filed an appearance as an objector have presented all their evidence. You will be subject to question by the Community Development Commission and the applicant or the objector. To allow as many people as possible to be heard, if you are not an applicant or objector, we request that your remarks be limited to 5 minutes. If additional time is needed, the hearing will be continued until the next available hearing date. I will now call the first matter before us this evening. The first matter we have tonight is case number 13-V2/13Z1 in regard to the petition of Stanislaus Gas Code for the rezoning of the property from R1 Estate Residential District to the R2 Large Single Lot Family District, and a variation from the 125-foot minimum lot depth required pursuant to Article 6, Chapter 7 of the Municipal Code of the City of Wooddale. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mrs. Schroeder,
Here.
Dr. Madonna.
Here.
Mr. Peterson,
Here.
Mr. Petrella,
Here.
Chairman Sy.
There. I declare there is a quorum present. Jennifer, please indicate when the notice of the hearing on case number 13-V2/13-Z1 was published, and whether, as secretary, you have the certified publication from the newspaper.
Please raise your right hand, state your name.
Jennifer Hennigan?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. Yes, the notice was published in the Daily Herald on August 31st.
And was there a sign or signs posted on a property of the dimensions and lettering size and the information required by the zoning code?
Yes.
Is the petitioner present? Please allow yourself to be placed under oath and then present information relative to the petition and the standards set out in the Wooddale Unified Development Ordinance for the requested rezoning and variation.
Will each of you raise your right hand, state your name and address?
For the record, my name is Marshall Subak, S-U-B-A-C-H. I'm the attorney for the petitioner. I reside at 168 South Central in Wooddale. My office is at 1035 South York Road in Bensonville.
Stanley Result, and 5 North 012 Woodbury Road.
Do each of you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, are you ready?
Yes.
Again, for the record, my name is Marshall Subak. If you can allow me, Mr. Chairman, I want to pass out a couple of the copies of the lot subdivision we're proposing, okay?
Thank you, Marshall.
Thanks, Marcia.
Thank you.
Yes.
For the record, Marilyn, this will be marked as Exhibit A.
Sorry. The overhead didn't work, so I'm just going to pass it around. Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman and the committee, for taking your time this evening. I represent the petitioner. The property is at 5N012 in Wooddale, Wooddale Road. Previously, we were here seeking approval of a 4-lot subdivision and the rezoning of the property from R1 to R2. After those comments, it was a fairly long hearing. We heard comments from both the commission as well as from the public that attended, as well as from the Forest Preserve through a correspondence, and we went back to the drawing board and tried to address some of those concerns, and I think we addressed all the concerns that were raised previously. Certainly at some point we're not going to be able to satisfy everybody. The room is kind of divided as to those who want the petition to be approved and those who do not want the petition to be approved. But everybody has the right to their opinion, and you should consider those. Some of the comments are coming from non-residents, which I would say has a little bit less weight than a resident of Wooddale. But again, the goal here, in my opinion, is to try to add to the quality of the housing stock in Wooddale. Again, we're seeking approval of rezoning from R1 to R2 and the variance of the lot depths from 125 feet, which is required under the R2 zoning, to one of the lots. If you look on the diagram, lot 3 as proposed has a lot depth of 103 to the south and 105 on the interior. Lot 2 has a dimension of a lot depth of 126. Both the lot width on lot 2 is 95 by 96. Lot 3 is 92 by 20. And then if you go to what we're calling lot 1, that actually has a lot depth at the shortest area of 80, but the lot width there is 190. Lot 1 is over 20,000 square feet, and other than the lot depth, it does meet actually the R1 requirements. One of the issues that was raised last time was the traffic that a 4-lot subdivision would add to Brookhurst, saying that there were going to be 2 new houses with driveways along Brookhurst. So to address that concern, we only have 1 lot that is along Brookhurst, so there will only be 1 additional driveway, 1 additional residence built along Brookhurst. Another concern we had was from the Forest Preserve, and you're going to hear that through a letter. Concern again from the Forest Preserve that they were worried about some of the trees that were along the Forest Preserve property. The Forest Preserve property is, my understanding is to the south of this property. With the way the lots are configured, lot 3 is already developed, so you're not going to have any additional construction there. Lot 1, you're going to be able to avoid any construction along that south side because the house would be placed in the middle of the lot, and lot 2 does not abut to the Forest Preserve. As far as lot 2, again, that's a 10,000 square foot lot with a lot width of 95.96 and a depth of 103 and 105. That's where the new residence would be constructed. The purpose behind the new lots is to defray some of the cost because my client who owns Lot 3 right now with the existing residence wants to bring water to his property, and the water is about 450 feet away. The water being brought closer is going to benefit not only these properties, but in long term it will benefit the property owners along Wooddale Road and along Brookhurst. Even though people along Wooddale Road might not have problems with their wells now, if they have problems with their wells in the future, they will be the first ones coming before the city council saying the water is too far away, we have a bad well, we want water to be closer. So the benefit of approving this is the water is going to get closer to all those residents along Brookhurst as well as Wooddale Road. The next issue is really, should the zoning be R2 or R1? And again, Mr. Chairman, if you allow me to approach, I will pass out the zoning map.
Marilyn, would you mark this Exhibit B then?
So if you look on the zoning map, and I'm sorry for those residents, I don't have an extra copy of it, but the property in question has the red arrow towards it. It's much better if you can see it on the screen. But what is really surrounding this property? R1 is that faded kind of light yellow or cream color. Those are the lots that back up to Maple Meadows, and I admit those are very unique lots. They are a state size and a state quality, and those can stay R1. And then if you look across to the north, it's the unincorporated area, and then across the street is unincorporated. There is one section of R1 that was approved. I went back and Jennifer was nice enough to give me some of the minutes from what was approved there, and I believe it was a 4-lot subdivision. But even though it was a 4-lot subdivision, I'm not sure if those lots all met the R1 requirements. Even though it was zoned R1, I think they went in under an annexation agreement, and they were granted some variances. I know that for a fact, because one of the things with the R1 across the street was it was going to be developed with a private road. And the reality is it never got developed. It's still sitting there vacant. If you look further to the north, that is all R3 zoning, which are actually smaller lots than the R2. So this board has the unique opportunity to kind of set policy. And what do you use to set policy? One of them is you look at the comprehensive plan that was adopted by the city council and as well as this board initially. The comprehensive plan says that this should be moderate density, single family, and that is met by the R2 zoning. And then we look to the surrounding properties, and certainly any good zoning attorney wouldn't say that this is spot zoning by any means. By putting R2 zoning in this area, it actually flows quite nicely. That you have the larger lots along the golf course being R1, you have that one outlier of R1. Some people would call that the gateway to Wooddale, and then the remaining portion can be R2 with medium-sized, well, I call them medium-sized lots. These lots are bigger than the lot that most residents in Wooddale have. Again, over 10,000 square feet for the R2, and then you flow into the R3 zoning that's already developed. Again, as far as background, the R2 lots are lots that meet a requirement of 80 by 125, over 10,000 square feet, and they are considered good-sized lots. Last time I talked about, I just want to touch on again, future development across the street. The property furthest to the north, next to Elizabeth Court, got bought by the Bensonville Park District because no developer was able to develop it based upon an R1 or R2 standards. Other concerns you're going to hear tonight and ring throughout Wooddale are flooding issues. And even though sometimes it's hard to comprehend, an engineer will typically tell you that when you have development, the detention that's required is going to help the flooding in the area. Right now, nothing is holding all that water that's on the open space across the street. That water flows partly to the front, to Wooddale Road, and mostly to the rear, to Cedar Avenue. Then from Cedar Avenue, it runs into the First Ward and causing flooding problems. So this is considered upstream from those areas such as in Woodside and along Central Avenue and Cedar Avenue. So long-term, if this gets developed across the street, you're going to require them to put in detention, and that detention is going to help the regional flooding issues that are present right now. And I believe that with R1, you're just not going to see that property get developed. I mean, the reality is R1 is very unique in the town. Not many lots are R1, and we already have it along the golf course. There are 8 factors you're supposed to consider when whether or not to grant a variance. The first factor is whether or not granting the variance will allow the petitioner to yield a reasonable rate of return on their property. And again, without this variance, my client is not going to be able to bring the water across the street to this property, and that's the main driving force behind this, is to bring the water across the street. The second factor is whether or not the variance does not serve as a convenience, but will alleviate some undue or unusual hardship. The unusual hardship is really the location of where this water is across the street. The next factor is whether or not this was caused by the petitioner. And again, the location of the water was not caused by petitioner. That's where it's always been located and everybody's been waiting for someone to bring it across. And my client's going to be the first one to bring it across, and hopefully, eventually it would be looped up with Elizabeth to complete the loop for the water system. The next factor is whether or not the granting of the variance will be material detrimental to the neighbors. And again, bringing water to the site is going to be positive to the neighborhood, positive to anybody you talk to in the fire district. And long term, it's going to set a tone for the development of the property across the street. The next factor is whether or not the variance will adversely affect the neighborhood. Again, the lots were drawn trying to minimize everybody's concern. One of the concerns was the traffic along Brookhurst, with only one additional residential lot on Brookhurst, which we can get anyways. There's going to be no additional traffic along Brookhurst. The other lot would have a driveway off of Wooddale Road, and we're not going to disturb the fire or the Forest Preserve District property. The next factor is whether or not the variance is going to alter the local character of the area. And Mr. Longo and I will disagree upon what the local character of the area is. But I think the local character is really that there's quality housing. There's quality housing that already exists there, and my client wants to build new quality housing. Without this, you're going to continue to have what you have there. Without granting this, it's going to be vacant space. The lot directly to the north, actually, of us, as I checked on the website today for the assessors, is actually 80 by 195. So I know the owner of that property spoke last time, and they were concerned about the location of the houses. But the reality is their lot doesn't have the same width as what our lot does. And with the 3-lot subdivision as we propose it, they're not going to have a house sitting right next to them in their backyard. The house would be able to be placed on lot 1 right in the center. Again, trying to address all the concerns that we heard last time. The next factor is whether or not the granting of the variance is in harmony with the comprehensive plan, which again it is. Then the last factor does not apply in a case like this. Just to comment briefly on the staff report. I know Jennifer, she's doing a great job. One thing is she mentioned that the lot depth was 80.4. That's as so far as, that's the one lot along Brookhurst, but the 2 lots along Wooddale Road have depths of 126 and 105. The lot depth on those Wooddale Road lots we're requesting, the variance is only about 20 feet, which is not beyond a normal variance that's granted. She correctly states that it meets the comprehensive plan. Then she says she also doesn't want to recommend approval. That's just Jennifer doing her job. She's not setting policy. You know, it's not a staff member's decision to set policy for the city of Wooddale. They're supposed to incorporate the policy that the city council and this board sets. And so she's looking for this group and the group above to set the policy as to, do you want this to be R1 or do you want this to be R2? That shouldn't be a staff level decision. That's a resident's decision. That's why you're on this board. So, otherwise, her staff report was fine. This town is in need of some growth. Whenever you can get new houses built in a town, it's a positive thing. We want those new houses to be of highest quality as possible, because if the new houses that are coming in are of less expensive as the existing houses, those existing houses will never get sold because you end up kind of being stagnant. It's going to be good for the local economy with hiring more people to build these houses. You are going to get some regional benefit from the building permits. It's not going to be a big impact on the schools. And it's going to get sometime long-term, setting this trend for what's going to happen across the street, because you are going to hear concerns tonight about flooding, which is not going to get solved keeping the status quo. This is growth. A very smart businessman that used to own Forest Engraving told me one time that if you don't grow, you die. And this is growth, and in my opinion, this is positive growth. So we're here to answer any questions you have, and thank you for your time.
Well, Marshall, you know, to me, you talk about a hardship that the property owner has. To me, the thing is, I think it says there it cannot yield a reasonable return for this money. Well, there isn't a person in this room that has not invested in either stocks or bonds or there where you might not get a reasonable investment return, but you don't go back and say, okay, let me pick out another partner. Right now, you're asking the city to be a partner so this guy can make this landowner could make more money, and he's going to be, if it does go through, he's going to get money on a recapture fee of the water line. So there's two possibilities right off the bat, that all he's looking for is the city to be a partner so he can make more money, and I think it's unfair for the residents of that area that the city should come in and be this man's partner by giving a variation, a rezoning, so he can build these 2 additional homes, which he's going to make money on. Correct?
I believe you never know what's going to hold in the future as far as making money on a future development. Is he going to build a residence that either he's going to sell or his kids are going to live in? Yes. But is he going to hopefully make money on that? Yes. But is that going to increase the equalized value in the area? Yes. Are they going to get the building permits bump for that? Yes. Are they going to expand the tax base? Yes. On the recapture, Chairman Tsai, there is no guarantee if you put water and sewer down the property that A, you'll ever collect that money. That's for sure. And then B, that might be 15 years down the road, 20 years down the road. We're not asking the city to pay for the hardship of the return is not on the lots. The return on is bringing that water 450 feet across the street. That's where it's the return on that, not the return on the actual lots. And again, there's no guarantee if you put lots in and have an ironclad recapture agreement that you'll ever collect the money.
Well, being a smart businessman, if you're going to put a water main in, you're going to have a recapture fee on there. And you, as an attorney, if you're advising them, that would be the first thing you would say. Okay, you have a recapture fee on there, and if
absolutely, but he's not going to be able to recapture. He only recaptures if people actually tap into that water.
That's right.
And if people don't tap in or stay unincorporated or come up with their own reasons, as residents have, for not paying it, there's a risk. There's a risk to that property owner outlaying that money.
It was a risk when he bought this piece of property. Is the fact, okay, his thinking, oh, here's a nice piece of property. I got a real good deal on it. Let me be a good neighbor for a couple of years, and maybe I could partner with the city, and we could throw 2 or 3 more houses on this piece of property and make a negative impact on the neighborhood, but I'm gonna make money. I'm gonna make money. It's all comes right down to money, Marshall. This nice speech you gave and everything like this, it comes down to the buck.
Well, but also, Mr. Chairman Sy, you're right, it comes down to getting those dollars back for the cost, but I'm not here asking for R3 zoning. I'm not asking for townhouses to be built along Wooddale Road. We're still talking about single-family homes that have lots that are all in excess of 10,000 square feet. In fact, the lot along Brookhurst is over 20,000 feet. That is nothing to be, if all of Wooddale got developed with lots of 20,000 or 10,000 square feet and above, we'd be doing just fine. So this is not gonna be some kind of low-end housing. This is gonna increase the values of the housing in the area. Perfect example I can give you, I had my house on the market for sale. In the subdivision, Arbor Woods went up, and those houses originally were $400,000 a piece, or $450,000, and the market tanked, and then they were advertising those houses for, I think, $325,000. I had mine listed at $375,000. Everybody would come to my house, they'd say, well, we're gonna look at those new ones over there for $325,000. And so guess what? I stood there stagnant until all those houses, and they're still not sold, were gonna be gone. My property value just sat there. So again, these are still good-sized lots. They're gonna be quality housing to complement what's in the neighborhood, not bring it down. And I think that raises the value of everybody's homes. If Mr. Longo ever decides that long-term, and I just pick on him because he's a good
Don't make
speaker.
my argument for me, please.
So, but
I'll speak for myself.
but-
Don't make my argument.
if any resident is gonna sell long-term, they wanna be able to get as much money as they can, and we wanna raise that stock of housing in Wooddale. And you do that by having new construction being built, and you have large lots, and that's what this is.
Well, to me, if this gentleman is in such a financial hardship, let him sell the other lot, then he get his money back. Any other?
Mr. Chairman, I thought we were asking questions as opposed to making statements, so
Okay.
if we're on the questions, then I do have some questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Last time that you were here, I did raise the question, it's always been a concern of mine that the property
Yeah, we gotta-
had not been properly annexed. I know that I had done some research, and I know there had been a pre-annexation agreement prior to. Do you know if the city council has taken any action to annex this piece of property?
They've taken action, if you define action by kicking it to the committee, their lower committee, I believe, I think, because it was supposed to go straight to council, because it was a straight annexation, and then the council decided, I think because, I can't speak for the council, but they decided to kick it to their committee.
Yeah, if I might.
Yes, please.
Dr. Madonna.
Yes.
This property, the annexation of the property was subject to a pre-annexation agreement. The terms of that pre-annexation agreement have been fulfilled. We sent to City Council an ordinance by which the City Council would approve the plat of annexation, bringing in the property as it stands now into the city. And it's my understanding that at the last City Council, there were a couple of questions raised about the annexation process because it hadn't been before it in a while, and so it's been held off. Any action that you take here tonight is subject to annexation of the property into the city. So this is a not unusual. Property owners who are seeking annexation to the city oftentimes do seek zoning relief, at the same time. If it's not annexed, any advisory opinion you make to the city council would not move forward. The only way you can zone or plat is if the city does adopt the annexation ordinance.
Okay. Under, at least when I was in city council, under any pre-annexation agreement, all properties came in as R1.
Correct.
Is
And
that correct? And that
is
would be
what-
this also?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the other question I had, because I was not able to find the answer to, is the pre-annexation agreement only on the home portion of the lot, or is it on the entire parcel?
covers the entire parcel.
Okay, so therefore, that's why this variation would come under that, okay.
Yes, it's my understanding what, the, on annexation, which should have occurred, but on annexation, the property does come in as R1. What you're hearing here tonight is the petition to rezone from R1 once it annexes
Right.
to R2. And then to allow it, which is a separate decision from whether you grant the variances or not. Because zoning, you could grant. The zoning would allow the petitioner to do anything R2 zoning would allow. The variances are required because separately, the petitioner is seeking, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Subak, separately, they're seeking a plat of subdivision for 3 lots, which would be allowed under R2 if they had enough land, but they
Right.
don't.
Okay, so we do have 2 separate issues.
Two
One is
separate
zoning,
issues.
one is variation.
Correct,
Okay.
and when the commission is ready to take the vote on it, it will be 2 votes.
2 votes.
You could grant the rezoning and not grant the
The variation.
variations.
Okay. The other question I have, and maybe you can answer that as the attorney, is the recapture of the water line in the pre-annexation agreement?
It is not, because at the time of the annexation of the property was considered because the homeowner was attempting to build a home and the county was requiring, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, it has been some time, Mr. Subak, but I think that the county was requiring septic and the property owner wished to build with sewer.
Sure.
And they came to the city and asked to allow them to build their home on the property with city sewer. The city allowed the construction of the single-family home on the city sewer, subject to their subsequent annexation to the city. So that's.
Okay, so they actually they're on city sewer, but they are not annexed. But
Correct.
that's why the annexation was being discussed.
Yes.
Okay.
And they're not on water yet because there wasn't water out there.
You want to follow up on mine? I have a few more.
Go ahead,
But go ahead. If you want, on that same subject matter? No.
go ahead, finish up, Doctor.
Do you have a cost factor for the running of this, the 450 feet that you're talking about as far as the water goes? Do you have a rough estimate of what it would be?
To bring it to the property, they think it's around $150,000 or a little bit less.
And that question actually, I know that there's some concern and interest, but that's not one of the factors you look to for rezoning of a property, nor is it a factor to look to on consideration of a variation for the property. So I appreciate the fact that Mr. Subak has brought it up, but when you're looking at rezoning of a property, you're looking at the existing zoning and whether the proposed rezoning fits within the comprehensive plan and meets the variations for rezoning. And of course, on the variances, should you vary, and the standards for variation are set forth as
Right.
well.
Right, okay. I'll get back to mine after, I believe that.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Peterson.
one clarification from, when the city attorney said we don't have enough land for R2, we don't have enough land depth. We meet all the other requirements of R2, which is a 10,000 square foot lot. We just don't meet the depth requirements.
For 3 lots.
For 3
No,
lots.
you meet the requirements for R2, period. You
Correct.
don't meet the requirements, it's my understanding, for 3 lots on your property. Is that correct, Jennifer?
Yes, that's correct.
Right, but when you said, just to clarify, when you said there's not enough land, there is, it's just the way, it's just the depth of the land doesn't meet the requirements. The width of the land and the square footage of the lots all meet the R2 requirements.
And for purposes, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, just for purposes of the record, would your client, would he proceed to request rezoning if he would not receive allowance for the variations?
Sure, yeah, we're here tonight for 2 different reasons. One is for the rezoning of the property from R1 to R2, and then secondly, to have the 3-lot subdivision with the variance of the lot width, or lot depth, excuse me, for the lots, again, of about 20 feet for the 2 lots in front.
Okay, if we're on the variation, then I do have a couple questions regarding the variation. You had mentioned earlier during your presentation that one of the lots had a depth of 126.
Correct.
They're very hard to see, but.
That's
100
lot 2 to the north, that,
Well, that would, at the 126, it would be within the 125 that's required for rear lot.
that's correct, but if you go to the other side, it's 105. So I honestly didn't know how Jennifer would measure these, because they're
Okay,
uniquely drawn lots, trying to maximize or minimize the variances that we were requesting based on this, actually your recommendations of, if you're gonna request a variance, try to limit how many variances you're requesting.
well, that's why I'm asking the question, because it seems like you're asking for variances on all three.
Well, because I guess the question is for Jennifer then, if the lot is 126 to the north and 105 in the center, are we required, is a variance required for that lot number 2?
Yes, all three of the lots require the variations because you're looking at the smallest dimension or the average, in which case is still below the 125-foot requirement.
Okay, because the other, it seems to me where the house is, you're also talking a depth of 132 feet.
Correct, but on the inside it's 105, so that she takes the average of those two.
Okay, so is that the way you would use it? Is that the 132 and the 105 and divide them by 2?
Correct.
Okay, so that's why the variance. And the only other question I would have would be is that, could lot 2 and 3 be brought into conformity where there would be no variation request?
They can be, but then the amount of the lot depth variation on lot 1 increases. But certainly, we had different ways to draw it. These are movable lines, so he could certainly move the lots for lot 1 and 3 further to the west to eliminate those variances, and you just would have a larger variance for lot 1.
Okay.
And we're willing to do that.
That's all I have for right now, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes, I have a question. These properties, they're annexed in. Are they required to meet all city ordinances?
Yes.
Are they required to take city sewer and water?
When water is available, they will be required to take it, but our ordinance currently provides that you're not required to take water, I believe, until it's within 250 feet of your property line, and at present, there is no water service available.
Okay, but otherwise they're required to do it.
Yes,
Any annexed property.
correct.
Okay. I just want to know if people had to be compliant in these ordinances once they were annexed, that's all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I'll follow up with that and say that you can make conditions that vary the requirements of the ordinance if you would like, and the city council has certainly done that for some applicants in the past, allowing additional time to take action that's required under code. So yes, they do have to comply, but there are waivers or conditions that can be granted.
Do you know a legal term for being compliant within a specific amount of time?
Yes?
Could you explain it to me?
Well, as to water, that code specifically, and maybe Jennifer's more familiar with it than I am, but I believe our code does state that for water purposes, once you have the availability of water within a certain, within 200 feet, I believe it is, of the property, you have to connect.
And would that be a reasonable amount of time? Is that,
Well, as I've said, in the past, the city council has considered waivers on those requirements if a property owner comes in and suggests that they have a hardship.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Schroeder, do you have any questions?
No.
Any questions?
No, I have no questions.
Okay. Back to this. You done, Marshall? With your presentation?
Yes, just any
Okay.
questions or rebuttals? Thank you.
Is there anyone in objection to the petition or any member of the general public in attendance wish to make a comment and ask questions for the petitioner? Please stand and be placed under oath. Mr. Longo?
Would you state your name and address, please?
Peter Longo, 5N046 Wooddale Road.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much for allowing us to speak. We've been here many, many times before. The R1 designation, which was put on these properties originally by the original commissions, and every single commission since then, is to stop exactly what's being proposed now. I'm not an attorney, but it don't need to be an attorney to refute every single point that he made. But instead of going into that, I had a petition signed against this, opposing this. There are 11 other homeowners in that area. We're all affected by it. And every single homeowner signed this petition. Jennifer told me that I had to read this to make sure that it got into the record. So instead of going on with what I was going to say, I'll just read briefly what is on here. And this petition says, to the Wooddale City Council and Zoning Commission, we, the undersigned homeowners in the Wooddale Township neighborhood surrounding 5N012 Wooddale Road, Wooddale, Illinois, hereby respectfully submit this petition in opposition to rezoning the 5N012 property from R1 to R2 or R3 designation, adding giant-sized homes crammed into such small areas destroys the spatial integrity intended for the area by current law and compromises the unique ambient charm and desirability offered by Wooddale Township housing. The long-term negative effect on potential buyers and home values cannot be overstated. In addition, the increased environmental destruction, the noise and emission pollution, water retention manageability, traffic congestion, and safety deterioration are among the major reasons for R1 requirements imposed by all earlier zoning commissions. We are also greatly concerned that a rezoning to allow this type of construction for the first time in history will set a precedent that renders all future commissions and councils powerless to argue against any requests from new builders who wish to destroy the entire area with stacked housing. We strongly urge the council to deny this request for the reasons listed above and the purposes of good community life in Wooddale. I would like to also add, just briefly, that putting the homes there, this is an old idea in a new packaging. The bottom line principle is still the same. Somebody wants to take a lot and subdivide it the way none of the other lots in that area have been subdivided before. The charm and the attractiveness of that area is the spatial properties that are available to potential buyers. This is why I bought my property there 27 years ago, because of the space that's offered there. You have to go to Michigan going east to find another property like that. Many people have visited my home and the homes around us over the years, and that's their first comment, is how wonderful and how beautiful this area is. You can't find this anywhere. Stacking homes into that one property is not going to elevate my property value, it's going to decrease it. But there's a much bigger precedent here that's a very, very serious issue. And that is what the rezoning will do by opening up rezoning for builders who want to come in and develop that entire area, not only across the street from me, but north of Elizabeth Road on the west side of the street with all those big lots there. How are you going to stop them when they say, hey, we have a legal precedent here, there's an R2 right there, and we want to use it too? You cannot stop that once that starts. Mr. Zubek is already trying to make an argument on going back into the records and finding some obsolete paper that allowed somebody across the street to put some homes there, but they didn't do it. He's already trying to make that particular argument. If an R2 is granted, can you imagine the argument that builders will have when it's already been done? And it's right there. In a few short years, that entire area could fall and look like a middle-class ghetto. And I've made this point before. If you don't think that that's true, that that's what builders do, all you have to do is start looking around at the properties they developed. The property over by the train station on Potter with all those townhomes, look how close they are. Go right down Oak Meadows Drive by Central Avenue and you see all those new homes that were put there where there's just a few homes, garbage cans, cars. It just looks awful. It's absolutely horrid. Our area has been protected by the commission over the years for many, many reasons. Stanley wants water. He says, we need to get city water. My well is 70 years old. The water comes out of it just fine. I don't have any problems with it. Haven't had any problems with it in 30 years that I've lived there. I have bought some filters for the water and spent some money for that, and so have all of my neighbors. We take care of our own business. We pay for our own concerns. The water is fine. Stanley's in the same reservoir that the rest of us are. If he wants water, pay for it. Don't ask the rest of us to get in the middle of it and help you pay for the water. My water's fine. I don't need water. But if I do need water down the road, like Mr. Zubek says I probably will need, I will pay for it at that time. And I'm not going to be standing in front of this commission asking you to help me pay for it. I will pay for it. That's my responsibility. It's your responsibility. It's not our responsibility. I own one of those small homes that Mr. Zubek continues to refer to as a home that detracts from the neighborhood's value. I disagree with you, and if you ever say that again, you and I are going to talk outside. This is a very, very serious matter. What do you think? That's why we're all here. If it wasn't serious, we wouldn't be here. The long-term effects of this cannot be overstated. And you have to be very, very careful because you'd be the first commission in history to grant something that all the other commissions denied. I hope that tonight we can put this to rest. This is an old bone that we've chewed on many times. And I hope I don't have to come here again and make the same argument once again. But every time they come here for this, I will be here. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Longo. Marilyn, can you mark Mr. Longo's exhibit?
Yes. I have to get it from him.
Oh, here.
Do you have the original, Jennifer?
No, I do not.
But do we have the original in our records?
We will get a copy from Mr. Longo.
Okay, if you have the original of the signatures,
The original I do not have with me, but I can get it to you.
if you can make sure that you give it to Jennifer so it's part of the records.
Yes, thank you.
And that will be Exhibit C.
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak?
Would you raise your right hand, please? State your name and address.
My name is Fred Pruitt, 5NO80 Wooddale Road.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so
Yes,
help you God?
Yes, I do. My wife and I have been residents for 40 years, 5 homes down from Stanley's property. We've encountered floods, problems of all types with the traffic, which we endure. The water has been a major problem on Wooddale Road and on the property directly behind Stanley's property. It was so bad when he bought the property, he brought truckloads of topsoil to prevent flooding in his yard. The water is coming from the Forest Preserve District just directly to the south. There's no answer to it, but if you build more homes, more foundation, driveways, and cement, it'll exacerbate the problem that we currently have. They put sewers at the far north end of the roadway to help prevent some of the water. The water used to freeze and ice up at the end of the driveway, and it was causing major problems. That's just one of the objects that I have to talk about today. I have a couple of other points. The water that Stanley wants to have the city pay for, the residents that we are talking about that live there will not pay for the sewer or the water systems. Each of our lots are 1 acre of land. To have 1 acre of land in R1, you need to have a well and a septic. We have no natural water. If you subdivide his property into 3 distinct properties, I don't think there's enough space to allow for a well or septic. You tie into the sewer, but where will the water come from? I don't think a well can be put in a small property zone because we can't do it in our property as it is. So I don't know how that'll be addressed. The city of Wooddale, there are other people that live there that are directly in Wooddale that do not have city water. There's at least 6 homes on the east side of the street, and they have no water from Wooddale. They have wells. So I don't know how that would be addressed if this thing were to happen. We do not want to pay a tremendous amount of money to run a water line across the road that we don't want in the first place, and we believe that the water is for his benefit only, for his own home and 2 other properties. Because if he doesn't have the water, he can't do these homes, because he needs the water line. I don't think he could subdivide the land and then put in wells to support these new homes. One more topic I have to address: growth. We've been contacted by real estate developers. We, the people that have homes there now, each on about 1 acre of land, saying that if we would subdivide our own homes like Stanley is doing, we could reap great profits. We're not going to do that. If we did that, that whole area consisting of maybe 11 or 12 homes could be 30 to 40 homes in that small subdivision, which would be insane. So if you allow him to go to R2, that could happen to all of us if we just looked at money. And basically, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Next person.
Would you raise your right hand, state your name and address, please?
My name is Jonathan, Jonathan, last name is Hand, Hand. I live at 380 South Wooddale Road, formerly 5N030 Wooddale Road.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
So help you God.
Yes, I do. Good evening, Zoning Commission, Mr. Zubak, all my neighbors. My name is Jonathan Hand. I'm a new resident here to Wooddale. Myself and my girlfriend Sarah Steffen purchased a home at 380 South Wooddale Road. We closed August 6th of 2013 this year. When being new homeowners, we looked all over northeast DuPage County, and we decided to look in Wooddale, and we saw this home for sale. We went to look for the home, loved the way that it looked, loved the neighborhood that it was in, and we ended up putting in a bid for it, hoping that we would get it. And thank the good Lord above, we did get the home, and we now live there. We've lived there for about a month and a half. We like the location, the quietness, the beautiful trees that are there, And with the zoning, I live directly to the north of Stanley, and having what I've been told before, 4 homes but now 3, would change the neighborhood there. That would change the view out of my kitchen and dining room windows. Putting 2 houses, as Stanley wants to do now, there's a bunch of beautiful black walnut oak trees that are just gorgeous. And for you to put homes in there, you're gonna have to knock all them down. One thing that, that I'd like to add, that it may not or may benefit, I'm just gonna give you a couple of pointers here that I've been writing down on my phone here. Talking about the trees, Stanley has a very beautiful home, nice brick home. He doesn't have any trees that are right by his driveway or the front end of his property. And during the summer, I've lived there since August. We've had a bunch of hot, warm days. Stanley parks his truck in the property next to my home where it's all shaded. If you put 2 homes in there, you're going to lose a lot of those trees, and he's not going to have his nice parking spot that he does. As far as the water goes, when Sarah and I were looking to purchase the home, we were going through with the bank, and the bank wanted to know whether we were on well or city water. They wanted to know whether we were on septic or sewer. And I also wondered why the address was 380 South Wooddale Road and not a county address. Some of the documents that we received, we were unincorporated, and some of them we were incorporated. I found out that because we have the city sewer, we are unincorporated. We are annexed into the city of Wooddale, and we had to get documentation from the zoning commission here, or the zoning downstairs, that it would cost several hundreds of thousands of dollars to run a water main loop to our home, and our mortgage company, U.S. Bank, wanted to know that information before we went through with the purchase. My thing is that if it could be bought, it could be paid for. If you want water, pay for it. We're on regular well. We have a well system in my house. We rent some great equipment from Johnson Water in Villa Park, and our well is great. It's very comparable to Lake Michigan water. That's one of the things that I had when purchasing the home. The well water. The well water is great. So for that, for that aspect, that's good. Now, for the commission, if you were to approve a R2 or R3 zone for the benefit of those 3 homes, Stanley's included, that would be, you would have to annex those 3 properties into Wooddale, Illinois. With that being said, that whole the whole little subdivision that we have back there, including the 11 other homes, I believe, 11 or 12, out of all of those homes, Stanley and then the 2 other homes he wants to build there, and then myself, we are the only ones that would end up being annexed by Wooddale. And from listening to the earlier comments, the other homes would not have to pay for the water because they're still unincorporated, I believe, as due to the rules of the village here. Also, with having, the different sizes of the properties and whatnot, I have a nice sized property there. That's one of the main reasons why I bought the home. If I was a person living in that home where Stanley lives and that lot came up for sale, I wouldn't want to change the area of the home. You just put 1 home there. 2 homes is excessive, and that's going to change a lot of a lot of the attributes to our little area there. And another thing too is that, you know, it's just all around, you know, I like the view that I have out of my home. It's great. And to have all those, you know, to have 2 more homes built over there, it just wouldn't be feasible. You know, we bought the home this year because of the way that the community, the way that the neighborhood was. It's a very quiet community. It's a very nice community, and to have more homes built there, it just would change everything that myself and Sarah had looked at into buying the home. Now, with that being said, to tag along with what Peter, Mr. Longo said, is that, you know, also if you do agree to change the zoning for this property, you're going to be doing that for the whole entire village of Wooddale. So other homes within the area, you're going to have to rezone that whole strip up and down Wooddale Road. And, you know, I'm not here, you know, talking about my property. Yes, I'm the neighbor directly north to Stanley here, but I'm here for my neighbors and I'm here for the neighborhood. Wooddale's a great community. Wooddale Road is an awesome area to live off of. And to change that, it would change the whole way, the whole thing on how I drive north on Wooddale Road to get to my house, and it just, I don't think it's a good idea. So thank you for your time, and
Is there anybody else that wants to testify?
Mr. Chairman, I have a letter from the Forest Preserve District.
Okay.
This letter was submitted via email earlier today. It states, "The Forest Preserve District of DuPage County recently received notice of a proposed revised petition for rezoning and variation on the Jascolt property. We appreciate the opportunity to provide comments on the revised plan. District staff has reviewed the information provided regarding subdivision of the property into 3 buildable lots. Our initial concerns regarding additional development on this property remain relevant. The construction of 2 additional residences would appear to still require the removal of numerous trees. In addition, construction very close to the property line would likely damage the roots of some of the trees on the adjacent publicly owned Forest Preserve property. There are 2